WordPress plugin development and coding adventures. Let's explore the WordPress plugin loaded hook, which is fired every time an activated plugin is loaded for every single WordPress endpoint request. Basically every page that's loaded. Woohoo! This hook has been available since WordPress 5.1. However, what do you do if you want to build a plugin that is consistent in how you're coding it, but you're also supporting earlier versions of WordPress? So creating a backported version of this hook is turned out to be easier than we thought. Let's explore. Okay, the source code for WordPress 6.7.1 was backtraced through to here, and then as each active plugin is loaded in this loop, the very last thing it does is fire the hook. And this happens right after each plugin is loaded, and not to be confused with the plural all plugins of loaded hook, which only fires once. Okay, so let's go back in the versions to WordPress 5.1. Here we can see it's doing the same, loading the active plugins, firing the hook, and then when they're all done, doing plugins loaded. Let's go back one patch version, 5.0.22. Here we can see the plugins are being loaded in a loop. There is no hook being fired and the plural is being triggered. So looking at the historical versions of the release source code, we can trust that WordPress 5.1 really was the first instance of this hook being available. This makes it a lot easier to work with, especially when we go to our plugin development. When looking at our plugin directory and the main plugin file, which is always loaded every time the active plugin is executed for each WordPress endpoint request, this code will always be executed. And if you've been doing WordPress plugin development for more than a minute, you'll know that this is where the journey begins, and everything that you want your plugin to do must start here. So going right back up the top, as we work our way down through the list, there's the safety guideline for making sure that it is not run by itself. And if we come on right down to the very bottom of this file, this is where we're going to emulate the backporting of the hook. And it's a nice, simple piece of code. I've wrapped it into a function because I wanted to leverage the doc block above it. In theory, you could just have those lines of code without the function wrapper and you're good to go. If you are going to put it into a function, you need to be absolutely 100% aware of variable scope within PHP, and that's what this comment is referring to. Basically, if it's wrapped in a function, there's a potential, depending upon which WordPress version you're using, that this global WP version will be equal to null. So for this to work properly, you need to make sure that you have that line of code outside the function, but still within your main PHP plugin file. So that would be the equivalent of doing this. Okay, so if you're going to copy anything, do that. Please also make sure you change the prefix of the function. Use your own, that way we're not conflicting. Okay, so let's see that in action. We're basically running LocalWP in a nearly blank site called Blanky. We've got minimal plugins loaded. Here's the landscape tiers plugin which is under development. It's currently the only one active. We've got Xdebug installed, and we've also got a separate IDE for step debugging, and this is currently sitting on the local WP WordPress installation, and we can run through this code. So the important thing is to turn it on, localhost 903, hit debug, go to the debugger console. We can see it's now active and waiting. Go back to here, turn this on, and in theory, should just have to hit refresh. Okay, the page is doing what appears to be a forever load, but that's because this is kicked in and it's now started the runtime step debugging. LocalWP includes an extra script which kicks in. It's got various functions for auto admin login on your local environment. The key thing is we've set up some breakpoints to be able to skip this, and I generally do a breakpoint which is the very first line within the plugin, so that way we can just hit Command Option R to run straight to our breakpoint. Right down the bottom of the code, there's another breakpoint, so let's do Command Option R to run to that. Let's do function F7 to go into it, and now you can see the global variable scope is local. Let's do function F8. We've now got access to the global version. So that's gone all the way up and through. Version compare 5.1. Now we are running PHP and WordPress 6.7.1. So obviously this hook here will not function, which is exactly what we want, but for protecting the backward compatibility. But if the WordPress version did happen to be less than 5.1, it's as simple as doing this hook. We'll find out in a minute exactly why that's important. While we're here, let's take a look at the PHP magic constant for file. Stupid debugger won't show it. The main thing is, it is the fully qualified directory of your entire file location. Now, coincidentally, I've got a separate plugin or separate constant showing this. So see this file constant here. The main thing that the do action plugin loaded hook needs, it's actually the fully qualified file location. So there's WP content, plugins, the plugin directory, and the main plugin file. But for this to work cleanly, it actually needs to be the fully qualified directory all the way from the directory mounting. So here you can see my logged on operating system user is literally me. But it's going all the way through to where LocalWP has the website installed. Notice how this is reaching right down well below web root. So in this case, because this main plugin file is where the code is located, this magic constant here will actually return that same value. What's important to note, if you don't put this code at the very end of your main plugin file, then this magic constant called file will actually give the wrong value in. So it's really important that this code lives at the bottom of your main plugin file. Let's continue with a step debugging. Let's to prove that in concept, showing it practically. Skip over that, skip over that. So now we've just stepped out of the plugin's main file. You can see we're back into WordPress's settings file. It's just done the load active plugins, including once. F8, skip over that. Now when we look at this, confirming that theory and use of the file in the backported solution, you can see here that WordPress 6.7.1 is passing in the fully qualified file location from the mounted directory all the way back to the operating system. Okay, at that point we don't need to see any more. Hope you found this informative and useful.